Hey friends, welcome to Wednesday night. I am Russ, your host, and I will be spending the next few minutes with you discussing a few things, but mostly Mark 13. We got past this past Sunday talking about the end times, not something we talk about a lot in church, but something maybe we need to talk about a little bit more, or at the least have an awareness of. And we'll give you some reasons why tonight, but end times is a lot, and I didn't want to necessarily speak for an hour on Sunday about the end times for your sake and mine. So I decided we'd cover it and kind of split it up between Sunday and tonight. So we will do that. Hope you all are having a good week, and I always appreciate the chance to hang out with you. So let's do this. I promised you a list. And so, yeah, it's a list of mildly annoying or infuriating things that have happened to people. Speaking of not infuriating or annoying, Pastor Brian Spicer, my friend, who will be with you all on Sunday. Hope you're getting pumped for that. Still don't know what he's speaking on, but I'm sure it's going to be great, and it will be from the Bible, which is great. So we're excited about that. Hope you're pumped about that. And yeah, it's good times. So yeah, this is kind of sad. Postal worker made sure he could get the record to fit into my mailbox, but now the record is never going to work again. So it's very, very sad. AJ's here, shouting out for Pastor Brian Spicer. Yeah, that gives a whole new meaning to broken record. Here's a lady who reached out to a wedding photographer after she got a divorce asking for a refund. And as you can imagine by the conversation, the pictures can't be untaken, and you do not get a refund for the wedding photos. Garbage truck destroyed my enclosure wall and then left. That's very sad. I would say that's somewhere between infuriating and annoying, probably more on the infuriating side. This is tough. Chicken falls through the bottom of the bag. Very sad. Some good Kentucky Fried Chicken there. Hey, Jess. Oh, this is really tough. Almost done with the puzzle. 2 spaces left and 2 puzzle pieces that do not fit in those 2 spaces. I'm not sure why you would do a puzzle that's all just one color like that. You're just asking for yourself to be frustrated. But yeah, that's tough when the pieces don't match. Yeah, this could be tough. I do love me some Chick-fil-A, but this person apparently got a large and a medium that had the same amount of fries. I can't say I've had that same experience. I feel like they fill their fries. So this could just be somebody looking for trouble, which is a little bit annoying and infuriating. So that's tough. They're in the brown car and they can't get into their car. So I'm not sure. It looks like they're kind of parked in the space, and then the other person just kind of parked not in their space. Not okay. It's tough. This one, they're upset because of the credit card fee. There are a lot of places that do that now. Gas stations will do that. It's a different price between credit card and cash. And what they do is they show you the cash price on their big sign. So you're expecting to pay one thing, and then you put your credit card in and you're like, man, why does that not match up? Credit cards cost money, folks. And a lot of people are trying to recoup the fees. $19.99 for berries. I don't know why this person is so upset about that. You just move on. You don't have to buy them. But that seems like a lot of money for strawberries. This is rough. Why? Like, don't put the cap back on the ice cream box. The carton. Yeah, this is tough. Be careful where you buy your weights, because this one apparently says 5 pounds, but it really is not. So, life lesson there. Here you go. Listing a smart TV for $80, and somebody offers them $40. Not going to go half price 5 minutes into listing it. What's your bottom price? $75. And they offer $50, and then the price actually goes up from the original price. 85. Yes. Um, this one I go back and forth on because they're upset because they bought the bacon 2 days ago and it expired in January. Do you check the expiration dates on things before you buy them? This is just a good customer service announcement that you should check the expiration dates before you buy something. It's like a good life lesson. This this person's upset about single ply toilet paper at Disney World. The point could be made. This one's tough. After eating 2 of these blueberry waffles, went to heat up 2 more and saw the package was plain waffles. That got a couple of extra doses of penicillin there. Yuck. Mom says always check expiration dates. Yes, Mom's always been a very savvy shopper. My girlfriend said she'd be ready in 5 minutes, and then apparently they timed her, and it was a lot longer than that. I'm not going to say anything more about this. John Thatcher, greetings, my friend. This is kind of horrible. A small thrift store for those customers who are in the habit of stealing clothes and hiding the tags behind the mirror. Mirrors have now been siliconed, so please put the tags of the stolen items in the tin can. It's kind of like making light of the situation, but it's sad that people actually do that. Don't steal. Just don't steal. This is, could they have not just put an even amount here? 92 forks, 92 spoons, 91 knives. Why? Just why? Let's see. Oh, yeah, this avocado oil, 1,500 servings per container. So basically, they lowered the serving samples so they could say that it had no calories. Be careful what you buy, people. Oh, this is tough. Drew some dragons for a school art project. Very talented. Company comes over. Kids got to hold the glitter, and the paint was still wet. I mean, it doesn't look horrible, but I'm sure that they did not envision glitter all over it. It's a tough one. I've seen this before in a couple things, right? Your kids are learning how to spell and write words. So you have tub, 10, top, and I'm not sure what that's supposed to be in the corner with the rabbits. Maybe a team of rabbits. Like it's a 3 or 4 letter word starting with T. I don't know. But I feel like that's a mistake. That is horrifying. Please do not eat your sandwiches like that. There's just no reason for it. My father, when I need his help with anything, how do I fill my tires with air? YouTube it. Okay, thanks. My dad knows how to do pretty much everything, and he does not make me YouTube stuff. So, appreciate that. Mine roof hath been arrowed. That is a safety hazard right there. Yeah, so sometimes I think the life lesson is sometimes people do things that are annoying / infuriating. We just have to deal with them because we live in a broken world. All right, so let's jump into Mark chapter 13. You know, we went through basically the whole chapter. We skimmed over a few things on Sunday, but this is the part that I like to focus on tonight. Concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. If you've been tracking with us through the book of Mark, you understand that Jesus caused generally one of 2 reactions, and they were very extreme. They were either devoted love or extreme hatred. People either fell at his feet and offered him their whole lives, or they tried to kill him. There weren't a lot of people that fell in between. The irony of that is that people today can feel bored with Jesus. But anybody who's bored with Jesus, bored with the Christian life, bored with the Bible, you've never really taken Jesus seriously. Nobody in the Gospels was ever bored with Jesus. They thought he was a fraud or a phony. Yes, maybe, but they were never bored with him. A lot of times in Scripture, people who knew Jesus tended to cause division, not because they were being jerks, but because they believed he was who he says he was, and they took him seriously. In Mark 13, Jesus is prophesying about the end of the world. He's telling his disciples about all these ominous things that are going to happen. Talked about some of them on Sunday. Sun darkening, moon turned to blood. And then he says, the verse in verse 32, but concerning that day or that hour, no one knows. Not the angel in heaven or the Son, but only the Father. And the question can be raised, he doesn't know when he's coming back. And it brings up like, well, isn't he the Son of God? How can the Son of God not know something, especially something important like his own schedule for returning? Maybe this shows that he wasn't God. There are people who would say that. But we realize that this is not described like this with limitations. Luke 2:52 says that Jesus increased in wisdom and stature. How does the Son of God increase in wisdom? He's already all-knowing. Can the all-knowing God get wiser? Hebrews tells us he learned obedience, which means he had to be trained to do certain things, like eat his vegetables, just because mom and dad said so. It appears that Jesus had to learn some things on earth, just like you and I learned them. Some people see Jesus as like a baby savant sitting around the nursery at 3 years old, like lecturing the other toddlers about Leviticus 13, talking about the end of the world. That's not the way that it went. Like he had thoughts like kids have, like, hey, can I have another fruit snack? Like, why did they get more goldfish than me? Like James took my toy. And you're like, it's weird to think about Jesus like that. And you say, how can that be if he's God? Well, from the very beginning, Christ's followers have believed that the incarnate Jesus, so that Jesus that came to earth, was both fully God and fully man. It means 100% God, 100% man, not 50-50. The Council of Chalcedon, one of the earlier church councils, clarified it like this. It said Jesus was perfect in Godhead and also perfect in manhood, truly or fully God and truly man. One person acknowledged in two natures. He said inconfusedly, which I'm not even sure if it's the word, unchangeably, indivisibly, inseparably, the distinction of natures being no means taken away by the union, but rather the property of each nature being preserved. I know that's kind of fancy. But basically, they were saying the fact that he was fully God didn't take away from him being fully man. And the fact that he was fully man didn't take away from him being fully God. In order for Jesus to save us, he had to be fully both. If he hadn't been a man, he couldn't have died in our place as a substitute. If he hadn't been God, he could have never defeated the power of sin and the grave. And he was both. And we see flashes of either nature. Because he was the Son of Man, he could be hungry. Because he was the Son of God, he could feed 5,000 people with a boy's lunch. Because he was Son of Man, he would get thirsty. Because he was the Son of God, he could turn water into wine. Because he was the Son of Man, he grew weary. Because he was the Son of God, he raised the dead. As the Son of Man, he counted his birthdays, right? He aged. But as the Son of God, he would say, I'm the Alpha, Omega, beginning and end. Because he was the Son of Man, he didn't know the day or the hour of his return. Because he was the Son of God, he promised he would return on the clouds with power and glory. So what happened was when Jesus was on earth, he voluntarily emptied himself of access to a lot of his divine powers, right? We talk about our rights sometimes. I was having this conversation with someone the other day that Jesus gave up his rights. Like we think we have our rights to things, and we do. Like we shouldn't let people just walk all over us all the time and take advantage of us. However, if there was anybody that had the right to stand up for himself, it was Jesus. And he gave up his rights and became a servant for us. So the actual word for voluntarily emptying himself to access is called kenosis. It means the emptying. So in his humanity, and we're talking again about this verse 32, concerning the day or the hour, he did not know. In his humanity, he doesn't know, and he's choosing not to access his divine powers. By the way, this is a way that we can know that the Bible wasn't just forged by people who were trying to create Jesus into the supernatural figure that he wasn't. Think about it. If you're trying to support a guy that was just some religious rabbi as the Son of God, you would have edited this statement. You would have taken the statement out. The writers included it not because it advanced their theories, but because Jesus actually said it, and they were committed to telling the truth about him, even when what he said created a lot of problems for their doctrines and some explanations. So the reason he didn't know was because he, as a man, emptied himself of access to that knowledge. All right, let's keep reading. And it's still difficult. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time of his return will come. It's like a man going on a journey. When he leaves home, puts his servants in charge, each with his work, commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come in the evening, midnight, rooster crowing, morning, lest he come suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. Be ready, because I could return any moment. Here's why that's difficult. Did Jesus really think the end of the world was close? It sounds like it, but this was 2,000 years ago, and he still hasn't returned. Well, some people conclude that Jesus was wrong here, that maybe he was a product of his time, that many people in his day were expecting the end of the world soon, and Jesus went along with that, but he was wrong. In fact, they point out that Jesus said in the same passage, and I'll show you in verse 30, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. We talked about that on Sunday. That generation did pass away and the end had not come, so clearly Jesus was wrong. He absolutely wasn't wrong. C.S. Lewis thought this. But brace yourself, C.S. Lewis was wrong about it. Like I know I talk about C.S. Lewis a lot, but about this, he was wrong. Was Jesus wrong? No. So this is the part that we discussed on Sunday. Jesus was talking both about the destruction of the temple. He was talking about something that was coming soon, within the next 40 years. And he was talking about something that would be fulfilled ultimately later on. So the Messiah would be killed, temple would be destroyed, God would begin to gather in the Gentiles from the four corners of the world. That's what some of the things he talked about. And that all took place by 70 AD, which was in their lifetime. We said Jerusalem was destroyed, not one stone left upon another. So all of that happened. But not all of it has been completed. He hasn't come back with power and glory. He rose from the dead with power and glory. So it's begun, but it's not completed. So there's another reason that he might be telling us to remain ready. Jesus wants us to live in a constant state of readiness. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus gives a number of parables. He says his return will be like a thief in the night. You don't know when a thief's coming. Like, it'd be really awesome if thieves made appointments, right? Do I need to lock the doors tonight? Let me check my calendar. Like, nope, no scheduled break-ins. But for tomorrow, I've got 2 requests. I better be ready. No, thieves don't operate like that. So we have to be ready at all times. This is how the return of Jesus will be, the moment you least expect it. He uses the example of Noah. Really think about this. We talk about the story of Noah a lot, but think about this. God told the world that he would send a flood. Through Noah, he told everybody, and then waited for 120 years before he did it. So maybe right after Noah said it, people were nervous, maybe for the first 2 months, but 10 years later, they're like kind of skeptical. They didn't know what rain was. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he was just a crazy old man. After 30 years, would anybody have even remembered, besides the fact that Noah was building an ark during this time? 30 years ago was the beginning of, we were in the 90s, right? If some crazy guy said that God was going to destroy the world, would you remember it 30 years later? Think about this as after 120 years, it was so far out of their minds that they were partying, they got drunk, and then the flood came, and only Noah and his family were saved. Then Jesus tells the story of the master who gave 3 servants large sums of money. 2 of them got busy, invested the money so the master would have a good profit when he returned. But the third guy was like, he's not coming back anytime soon. I don't need to invest it. But the master returns when the servant is not expecting it and casts the servant into outer darkness. So all the examples make the same point. You need to live in a state of readiness like he might return today. Since I beat up on C.S. Lewis, let me make it up to you with this. C.S. Lewis said, precisely because we cannot predict the moment, we must be ready at all times. He said the soldier does not know at what time the enemy may attack or what time an officer might inspect his post, so he must be awake at all times. Not that we should always be running around in fear that the end might happen at any moment. We should be like an 80-year-old man, C.S. Lewis says, who needs, on the one hand, not to be always thinking about his approaching death, but at 80, he should be always taking it into account. It would be criminally foolish not to have made his will, and so on. Now, what death is to each person, the second coming is to the whole human race. We must therefore train ourselves to ask more and more how often the things we are saying or doing or are failing to do will look when the irresistible light of God streams in on it. that irresistible light that will reveal all things as they truly are. So that being said, let's do some quick applications and we'll go. 4 things that should change if we are in a state of readiness for Jesus' return. Number 1, spiritual alertness. How would you live differently if you knew that Jesus was coming back tonight? The church I grew up in talked a lot about the return of Jesus. And back then we had bumper stickers that said, hey, in case of rapture, this car will be unmanned. You start to feel bad for people that are dismayed that another year has passed and Jesus hasn't come back. You can be like, hey, there's always tomorrow, which actually wouldn't be true if your rapture prediction had happened. As a kid, I remember being very worried. Hey, Kelly. Yes, I get to speak at Granite United this weekend. Very excited about that. As a kid, I remember being really worried about the rapture happening. So my bedroom was downstairs. My sister and my parents were upstairs. And I can remember several nights when I was a kid that I would get up in the middle of the night and just stand at the bottom of the stairs and listen to hear if I could hear my parents breathing to make sure. I'm like, all right, my parents would definitely go if the rapture had happened. So if they're still here, we're good. And it's kind of easy to laugh about that now, but there's one thing that my church had that I think sometimes we're missing. It's the earnest expectation of his return. This is, people think of the doctrine, we said eschatology, right? The doctrine of the end times. Some people think that that's superstitious, non-essential, like the embarrassing, uneducated uncle of Christian theology. But think about this. In the 260 chapters of the New Testament, there are 318 references to the second coming of Christ. 1 out of every 13 verses mentions it. Furthermore, every moral command given in the New Testament is tied to the second coming of Jesus. Like, do this or don't do this because he's coming back. 1 John says, if you have the hope of seeing him, then you'll purify yourself as he is pure. So for every prophecy in the Bible concerning Christ's first coming, right, the coming of Jesus as a baby, there's 8 that look forward to his second. So we have this whole holiday celebrating his first coming, Christmas, right? But 8 times as much is said about his second coming. Charles Stevens said, how can we call this doctrine non-essential? It's in every chapter. Every command is tied to it. It keeps everything in the Christian life in balance. We're not looking for signs. We're looking for the Son, not concerned so much with a program, but enamored with a person, not striving for a kingdom, but waiting for a king, not trying to Christianize the nation, but evangelize the world. Yeah, that's a big deal. 8 times as much. And we rarely ever talk about the end times. What if you knew Jesus was coming back today? Wouldn't it make you ask the question, am I ready? Am I living today in a way that I'd be happy to see him tonight? What if you knew Jesus was coming back today? Wouldn't it make you ask the question, and what am I doing today that matters? Because I can only take with me to eternity the people that I've influenced. Churches over the years have ended their services with the pastor saying, Maranatha, which means the Lord is coming. And then he would say, and it could be today. Yeah, are my family and friends ready? We could use more than that. The thinking of it may be today. This could be your last chance to repent. This could be your last chance to share the gospel. So if we are living in light of eternity in a state of readiness, we want to be spiritually alert. Number 2, mission urgency. If you knew the world would end, doesn't that rearrange your priorities? Right? Think about the people that were on the Titanic. If they knew the Titanic was going down, you think they'd just be on the deck arranging the deck chairs? No, they would be making sure they were in a position where they could be rescued, making sure they had plenty of lifeboats. Crazy. Well, what do a lot of people do? Life is consumed by vacations and hobbies and possessions and bucket lists. We use that YOLO phrase, you only live once. I am not someone who believes God never wants us to have things that we enjoy. But I also know that life is painfully short. And when Jesus returns, I want to have invested my talents to the fullest for his kingdom. I don't want God to say, I gave you opportunity and resources, and you bought a nice car and a new house and filled up your time with silly hobbies. You knew I was coming back. Never want to have to stand before God and say, why Didn't you invest what I gave you from my kingdom? So nothing wrong with relaxing, nothing wrong with hobbies, nice things. But many people work so you can vacation, and that's the end game, vacation. But a disciple of Jesus, a true disciple of Jesus, takes occasional vacations so he can work more for Jesus' kingdom. In one of the parables, Jesus describes a guy who failed to invest the talent that God gave him, and he cast him into outer darkness. One man wrote, "It means that those people who fail to invest their lives for God's kingdom are not really safe, regardless of what they believe about us." I'm not sure I believe that completely. That's very extreme. But what I do believe is that an authentic experience with Jesus, with his spirit living inside us, should change our lives, our hearts, and our priorities. Are you investing the resources of your life expectant of his return? All right, if we're living with the light of eternity in Jesus coming, we should have hope in suffering. When we say Mark 13:26 says, "And they will see the Son of Man coming with the clouds in great power and glory." We always say through the clouds, but notice it says with the clouds. The distinction means he's bringing back something with him. His beautiful clouds of power and glory. The world we live in is wrecked by pain and suffering that comes from our sin. Jesus' return promises us that that won't last forever, that all the pain and brokenness of our world is temporary. I can endure just about anything if I know it's not forever. We can look upwards and say he's coming, and it may be today. Cornelius Plantinga said the second coming of Jesus Christ is good news for people whose lives are filled with bad news. If you were a slave in Pharaoh's Egypt or in the United States in the early 19th century, if you're an Israelite exiled in Babylon or a Kosovar exiled in Albania, if you're a woman living in a culture where when your husband gets mad at you, he can lock you up in a closet or threaten to have his buddies come and attack you, then you don't yawn when someone mentions the return of Jesus Christ. If your son just died of cancer, if your marriage dissolved, if you're lonely, if your body is wrecked with constant pain, lift your eyes. It doesn't last forever. It could be tonight. If your life just hasn't turned out the way you want it to, promise of the second coming shows us that the good old days, that the best days are ahead of us. We have hope in suffering. And then power to forgive. Tim Keller points out that believing in the return of Jesus gives you the power to forgive. There are people that have really struggled with bitterness, and they've been helped by the fact that Jesus is coming back. When somebody wrongs us, we want justice. So we run to the judgment seat of the world and we hop on it. And we know what they deserve. We want to help them get it. And it's like, go God, give it to them. Be God's advisor. We weren't meant for that throne. It's too big for us. And it distorts us like the ring in the Lord of the Rings. You ever seen how bitterness destroys somebody? Somebody's mad at somebody else, and it colors their whole disposition toward that person, where everything that person does becomes tarnished. Or maybe even they begin to be prejudiced toward whole groups of people. A woman that's angry at her husband thinks all men are bad. Somebody who suffers injustice at the hand of one person in a people group thinks everybody in that people group is bad. We weren't meant to be judges. And the doctrine of the second coming helps us stay grounded and off of it because we know he's coming back. He will bring justice. So I can endure injustice for the time being because he'll set things right. So those four things. So you say, when's his return going to be? Like, what's going to happen? There's four positions about that. Spiritual alertness, mission urgency, hope and suffering. Yes, you may hear that on Sunday. Appreciate you, Ryan Spicer. He's heading off to his live right now, and we're going to finish up here. So we didn't talk really a lot about the tribulation, like when Jesus is coming back. So the rapture is us being caught away. So the people of Jesus and those who have died and gone before getting caught away from the earth. And then Jesus will one day come back to rule and reign during the millennium, and then ultimately forever. People say, all right, some Christians think he's coming back before the tribulation. Tribulation is a 7-year period outlined in Revelation, in which the Antichrist and Kirk Cameron do battle, if you've watched the Left Behind movies. But pre-trib is one way. So that's Jesus. The rapture happens before the tribulation. Some people feel that it will be post-trib, The problem with that is the imminence. Like, the return of Jesus is supposed to be imminent. We're supposed to not know the day or the hour. And if we can outline the 7-year period before that, because we know a lot of what's going to happen as God pours out his judgment on the earth, then post-trib is kind of hard to wrap one's head around. Some people think it'll be post-millennial, like Jesus could return whenever. I have a problem with that because there's a lot of things in Revelation that don't seem to fit well with those models. Like, there will not be a millennium, or Jesus comes back after that. There are also pan-tribulationists, which means I really have no idea, but I know it'll all pan out in the end. I'm actually in the pre-trib camp. And for anybody that's believes in post-tribulation, it doesn't mean we can't be friends. It's not a deal breaker, but you can stay and enjoy the tribulation if you want. But I would rather be gone when all that's happening. So one thing we do have to agree on, we ought to be expecting it today. Charles Spurgeon said, "The hour of his appearing is not revealed, in order that we may always stand on tiptoe, expecting it to be today." Jesus is coming back. This is just a temporary situation for us. Our life is short. Life is a vapor. Donna and I are together. Rather be gone before it happens too. Yeah. Life is a vapor, and we want to accomplish 75% pre-trib. I like it. There are some interesting things to talk about with this. We're not going to do it tonight. We're not going to do it on a Sunday. Maybe with a small group, we could discuss some of the nuances of the tribulation and the surroundings of the rapture and Jesus coming back. But the reality is, he is coming back. This earth and our lives are just temporary. And what really matters is how we influence people for Jesus, that people will come to know Jesus and understand the gospel and live out the gospel with our community. And that's what's really important. That's why we do what we do. So live knowing that Jesus is coming back, and live in a way that it could be anytime. So we spend our time wisely. We leverage our lives, our resources, our place in the city, our relationships, everything that we have for the cause of Jesus, because that's who matters. Because he leveraged everything for us. We leverage everything for him. All right, let me pray for you. God, I thank you that you give us hope. Call this the blessed hope, the return of Jesus, that nothing that happens on this world, on this earth, is forever. This is temporary. So God, let us endure suffering. Let us live with an awareness that time is short and that people need to know you. So we do everything that we can to let people know that you are good, that you came to rescue, that you came to save, that you are available and offer love and forgiveness and freedom and hope and a new life and mission. And we get to be the carriers, the Christ followers of the gospel. And it's a privilege, and we want to do it well. I'm glad we get to do it together. I ask that you continue to be with the people in our community, be with our local churches. We love Pastor Spicer. We love Pastor Milas. We love Granite and Bay State. And ask that you would be with all of us as we do the pulpit switches this weekend. Let your word go out. Let people be touched and changed and see you for who you really are and come to know you better. In your name, amen. Blessed hope, right? This was the thing. We encourage each other with these words. We don't have to be scared. Not like I was when I was a kid. We don't have to be scared of Jesus coming back. It's an encouragement. Glad I'm part of the welcoming committee and not the planning committee. Nice. Appreciate it. Looking forward to Granite too, Kelly. Thank you. Terry Lee, I appreciate you. Terry Lee was part of the team that did a great job with our meal this past weekend. We so appreciate them. And it was a fantastic time together. All right. I will talk to you all soon.